Hinefrasi. Ginemastakula gihanasoku. Himastakulum gi corazonhu. Zani masfigu naninya senyahu. Hua frasim maisadzu. Parabai protehi zanhu defendi. Ihenengi.
Ihenengi.
Ikotura.
Ikutura.
ILINGUA'HI.
LINGUA'HI.
IAIRI.
IAIRI.
IHANAM.
IHANAM. Sanitano CHAMORU.
Irenshaku Teretsu Ginazua Stata. Estio Fitma Kihilu Biblia. Zani Benderahu. Ibenderan Guahan.
Buenas Dan Hafa Day, and welcome to the final episode of Hestorian Isla Season 5. I'm Jolene Tovis, your host. Polly Eric Forbes will grace us with his knowledge on the Chamorro language with his annual Chamorro Word of the Week, and Senora Rita NAUTA of Guampedia.com will take us into the island's post-World War II era. LINGUA'HI, the language, is the focus of this year's Mes Chamorro series. This episode will highlight how important perpetuation of the Chamorro language is. You are not going to want to miss this. Stay right there as Hestorian Islata continues after this. Welcome back. I'm Jolene Tovis, your host. Senora Rita NAUTA of Guampedia will now share with us the story of three notable women who helped shape the history of Guam during the naval and the World War II eras.
In our island's history, Chamorro men and women worked together to deal with many challenges that came under the rule of three colonial superpowers of their time, Spain, US, and Japan. Bringing women into our island's collective history means appreciating the stories of these joint struggles, acknowledging and incorporating the stories of ordinary women who served their villages and families in extraordinary ways, according to their talents, interests, and needs of the community. Hafa Day. In an effort to bring to light stories of some of Guam's extraordinary women, Guampedia, so far, has documented the lives of 28 women, accessible on our website and in our new book, FAMALAO'AN GUAHAN, Women in Guam History. Some of these stories emerge from the deep scars of war, when Guam experienced a period of rebuilding. A string of military governors were left to lead the island through its transition back into American hands, ushering in a massive military buildup. Large tracts of land were taken to construct military bases. The people of Guam pushed for self-rule and U.S. citizenship as recourse to right civil wrongs. Shortly after the war, in an effort to help heal the island community, Agita Iglesias Johnston, remembered as a pioneer educator, also played an important role in Guam's remembrance of the war. She convinced U.S. military leaders to support a commemoration of the liberation of the island from Japanese control, the first being a solemn procession. This commemoration continues to this day as one of Guam's unique and most celebrated holidays, Liberation Day on July 21st. A pioneer educator like Agita and driven by great internal strength and fortitude, characteristic of Chamorro women of that time, Rosa Agigit Reyes was also a pioneer in politics during this period when Chamorros continued their quest for civil rights. Although the Guam Congress was a formal advisory body with no specific powers under the U.S. Navy government, Rosa played an important role politically for her election as the first woman member of the Guam Congress in 1946. This historic milestone paved the way for other women to seek positions of political leadership. Most recently, our first elected Maga'haga of Guam, Lourdes Afligui Leon Guerrero. Paving the way for the Catholic education of thousands of Guam students was Mary Essie Underwood, known as Sister Mary Inez. She was one of the first 3 Sisters of Mercy who came to Guam in 1946 to establish the first convent of the Sisters of Mercy. Armed with courage of being a native of Guam and understanding the culture, Sister Inez also took the lead in working with Bishop Baumgartner in the founding of the island's Catholic school system in 1949. With the signing of the Organic Act in 1950, Chamorros became U.S. citizens with limited self-government. No longer ruled by a revolving door of naval governors, Guam's civilian governors were appointed by the U.S. President during this period. The term Guamanian was coined to reflect a new identity that served to distinguish and distance Chamorros of Guam from the Northern Mariana Islands, a former Japanese colony. Thus began the Americanization of Guam. With the importation of manufactured materials like concrete and tin in the 1950s, house building and community traditions changed. Gone were the days when villagers made their own homes, working together during the dry season to make thatched roofs. Making a thatched roof required that elders taught younger community members how to weave. It was an entry point to the weaving practice. Once a person could reliably weave thatch, they had enough experience to move on to more intricate weaving. Elena Cruz Beneventi did just that as a child and learned to weave more complex items by the age of 16. With thatch roofs no longer an essential to how people made their homes, community weaving skills weakened. While others gave up the practice, Tana Elena continued weaving and passed it down to the next generation. Traditional weaving evolved from a skill of necessity to an art form over the course of Tana Elena's 99 years of life on Guam. She left a legacy of dozens of weavers and a greater appreciation among the community for her talent, generosity, and her contributions to the preservation of Chamorro practices. Another advocate for the preservation of the Chamorro culture and language was Clotilde Ding Castro Gould. Through her sense of humor and gift for weaving stories and songs together about life on Guam, Clotilde helped create and shape Chamorro language resources and programs, as well as advance cultural awareness of the Marianas and the larger Pacific region. Even today, because of advocates like Tana Elena and Clotilde Gould, most Chamorros recognize and value the importance of their mothers, grandmothers, and aunts in Chamorro culture and society. Women participate in all facets of society, in all the major professions and businesses, are politically engaged and active in church and community. However, there are still so few women written about or named in Guam history. By writing women back into Guam's history, Guampedia hopes to provide a resource that inspires and motivates people to remember and learn from the past, and to collect stories about the important women and men in their lives. Dunkulu Nasizuas Maasi.
If you would like to purchase a copy of FAMALAO'AN GUAHAN, stop by the Guampedia office at UOG's Dean Circle, house number 3, or get it on their website at guampedia.com. Undonglu nasuduus maasi to Senora Nauta and the staff at Guampedia.com for participating every year in this annual Mes Chamorro TV series. To learn more about Guampedia, check out their website at Guampedia.com. Let's find out now about the tools used in the classroom to perpetuate the Chamorro language with the administrator of the Guam Department of Education's Chamorro Studies Division, Senora Rufina Mendiola. Welcome back to Historian E. Islata. Guahusi Jolene Tovis, and joining me is Senora Rufina Mendiola. And we're going to talk about the application of the Chamorro language in the classroom. So can you tell me, I see you have lots of books here. So you can tell me, how is the Chamorro language actually taught in our classroom?
Well, first and foremost, you have to have a tool, a curriculum. And under 4 administrators during my time, under Mrs. Gu and then Senor Bill Polino, our curriculum is really, there's too many. So as a teacher, you need to like pick and choose. And through the training, you know, we learn, and we learn which one is important. And then under Anne Rivera in the 90s, this came about, which is the reading series of all grade level. And it's just taking what's in the curriculum and putting it as a reading series for a material resource for the classroom. And then in 2000, Senor Ronald Laguana was the administrator. So under the NAUTA level, again with the content standard and performance indicators that I'm a part of in the making for the curriculum for Chamorro Studies. This came out with every grade level. So this is a tool that was taken out of the curriculum as content standard and performance indicators, and this is every grade level has a material that is in line with the standards to be taught in the classroom. And then now with my administration, so we took the LINGUA'HI level curriculum that's in the classroom, and we made now for every child a workbook. Awesome. So they can actually take it home. So what you learn in the classroom, you apply, you engage, and then you can take home, and now you as a child, a student, can be the teacher in your own home. So nice. Every child from K to 5 has their own grade level workbook that aligns with the standard. Curriculum is very important. We had our curriculum in the past, in the 80s, 90s. There's too many, but now we align with the Common Core. And when we produce the standards and the performance indicators, which is not limited to, that's one thing that's really the beauty in our Chamorro language teaching instruction is that we're not limited to. That means that if you're teaching something and whatever you have in your standard, you can always take whatever you have in your environment. You can call Manomku in to come as part of your teaching. For the classroom, we have the teachers now, we have 2 types of teachings. Okay, we have the Fino, which is thoroughly in the language of instruction, using the listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then we also hired traditional arts practitioners, so that music plays an important role in the learning of the language. So we have cultural practitioners in a lot of our schools, to be exact, probably about 15 of them. Wow. And I hope in the future we have every school has one cultural practitioner to teach the chant, to teach language and apply it with the content standard in the chanting, the dancing, the singing, music. Very important.
Wow, awesome. Now you also have another book that
Maisa. Now this one was thought of since 2012. So many years ago. Our Ronald Laguana attended a film festival in Guam and saw that it's very powerful to learn a language to film, and especially animation. So in 2016, we produced Maisa, and it's taken to all the classrooms in the school, and the kids is like, wow, it's a lesson in itself. There's so many components in teaching Fino Chamorro here with the history. So Maisa has won so many awards throughout, in Australia, in Hawaii, in Washington this weekend. Wow. Smithsonian film festival, and we're thinking of doing the second Misa.
Yes.
Yeah, this one is from the film. We take it and we make sure that like I said, to learn a language is not only what you see, what you hear, you touch it and you read it, and maybe you can write about it. So we take the film and make it now into a graphic novel.
Wow.
So this is into the hands of every high school student to take home. And I'm glad that Channel 6 and 7, Sorensen's Media has been showing Misa, our film, Sizu'os Ma'asi. That's one way that families and outside people that look into that channel can learn some Chamorro from the film. You can learn so much. So
Wow,
the content
wonderful.
standard and performance indicators that we have now that has been adopted by our board since 2011, it has 5 standards. The first 3 standards are communication for yourself, how you learn by yourself. The second standard is within your environment, which is you learn from your friend in the classroom. The third component is communication, how you present yourself to the community. And then the fourth standard is culture. Culture is always there in our teaching. So you take what we have in our culture and take it to the classroom, and you teach that and align it with the standards and performance indicators. We also have assessment, standard-based assessment that we have. Cadre of teachers again has produced, and we have piloted that, and we're better, and we're refining that assessment so that we can test all the schools, the kids in the Chamorro classroom.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like our Chamorro curriculum within our schools is constantly developing, which is wonderful because as times changes, so does the application and the teaching of our language.
And then we align it
Thank
to
you.
the world today. One of our component in our strategic for GDOE is technology. So
thank
we're
you
bringing
so much.
technology also in the
That is
teaching of
awesome.
the language.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dunkla Nasizoas
Hago
Maasi.
Masizu'os Maasi.
Yes. And we'll be back after this. Each year, Historian Islata is blessed with the continued support of Polly Eric Forbes as he shares with us all his knowledge of the Chamorro language. This year, Polly Eric will fill us with flavor. Let's take a listen on what malait means.
Every day, all day long, our life is filled with flavor. Today's Chamorro word is one of them, malait. Malait means bitter. Of all the tastes or flavors so far, perhaps malait is the least popular. Malait is considered bad, and as a matter of fact, many plants that are poisonous or otherwise bad for us are malait. Nature's way of telling us, don't eat this, it's toxic, and we can say, we know, it's malait. We say that our tears are malait, or we have bitter disappointments, or it was a malait pill to swallow. But malait, when combined with other flavors, can make a dish more interesting and enjoyable. The antioxidants in coffee and dark chocolate, which are good for metabolism and preventing cancer, are what make coffee and dark chocolate malait. But that's why we add sugar to them, and in combination with mamis, malait is good to the taste. And we're all becoming more aware now of the health benefits of something we've grown on Guam for a long time, atmagosu, or bitter melon. Because atmagosu is so malait, we usually dress it up by pickling it or by adding it to the pot. Atmagosu may be malait, but it's very good for the health. And although malait may not be our favorite flavor, don't we keep on fighting to the bitter end? As they say, the struggle may be malait, but the victory is mamis. Malait, bitter. And for this and many other information on Chamorro language, history, and culture, check out my blog, Polly Eric with one E, PALERIC.blogspot.com.
Saina Maasi Pali Eric. We look forward to his continued generosity to historian E. Islata in sharing his vast knowledge of the Chamorro language and history next year. Be sure to check out his blog at polyeric.blogspot.com. Let's continue with our discussion on the perpetuation of the Chamorro language with the Guam Department of Education's Chamorro Studies Division's Special Consultant, Senor Jimmy Teria. Welcome back to Historian E. Islata. We are now speaking once again with Senor Jimmy Teria. Earlier we spoke with Senora Rufina Mendiola about the application of the Chamorro language within the classroom, and now we're going to talk about the perpetuation of the Chamorro language in this day and age.
Okay.
So can you share with us, how do we perpetuate, or how should we perpetuate our language in the classroom, at home, out and about with our friends, just anywhere?
We need to speak it. At the very least, we were recently invited to the Mother Tongue Proclamation at the Governor's office at the Magahaga, and she proclaimed in the whole world is in 2019 to this year is Indigenous Language Year. And so we also, and it's Mother Tongue Day, which just recently passed a couple of days ago, so it was to commemorate that. And the very least that we need to do in order for a language to be perpetuated is to actually use it. And use it in various forms. The little that you know, use it with your children. Because if we don't have young speakers, or if we don't have a new generation of young speakers, the language will eventually fade out. So it's critical. It is so critical that to create new speakers of the language. And in teaching, in being in this experience with Chamorro and the revitalization of our language, I myself is very, I mean, I'm considered a young speaker. I'm the youngest member of the Comisión Ifino Chamorro. And so, and there's not many of us. And so we need for parents to just speak Chamorro, or grandparents, establish connections with your grandchildren. And I know sometimes it's frustrating to, they say that they don't understand, but we need to create relationships so that Chamorro can be heard in the homes. It can be heard on the way to school, or after school, or to the next event. And so Chamorro just really needs to be utilized. If we don't, and it's critical because we mentioned earlier that our speakers, our native speakers are
55 years
55
old.
or older. And so if they don't, if we're not passing our language to young children, it's really we're going to be struggling even further. And so we've been at the Guam Department of Education Chamorro Studies Division. We've been looking for ways for the language to be revived, and so we've been partnering with some of our partners like Chief Harao Academy, and we've been training teachers in looking for best ways where we can actually produce speakers. And so hopefully, if things fall into place, and if we're able to move forward in terms of pushing our Chamorro full immersion program this fall, we'll have 2 kindergarten classes conducted entirely in the Chamorro language.
Wow.
And so we've been looking at models in Hawaii, and they've been very successful with implementing their Hawaiian language in school systems. And since we mandated Chamorro, and since we teach Chamorro in the Guam public school system, what a better way than to have a full medium Chamorro classroom. And so we're really excited. The superintendent has been very supportive of this initiative, and we've really been making movements to really bring our language back.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, when I was growing up, my parents, they can speak it a little bit, but they can understand it a little bit, but they never really spoke it to me. My grandparents were the fluent speakers, but in passing down the language to my parents, they only did it when, you know, they only spoke the language when they were mad or, you know, the children would be getting in trouble. You know, so for people like myself who have the bare minimum knowledge of the Chamorro language, and what would you say to us who may feel a little embarrassed or scared to speak the language because we're afraid to butcher it?
Okay. We have to get over it. We have to move forward. In my class at the university, I always say, this is a safe place. This is a safe place. You can make all the mistakes in here, and we won't criticize. We have gone through a lot of trauma with our language, and especially now with language reclamation, we've experienced some of the worst forms of just severe trauma in anything. We've been teased. We've been scolded in Chamorro. Wow. No wonder why our language numbers in our young children are very, very, very minimal. So we really need to combat that with love. We really need to show that Chamorro is a loving language, and we need to emulate that in all facets. Because, quite frankly, if language is only to be used to scold or is used to belittle, then it's doomed. And so we really need to look at reconnecting our manamko with our children, reconnecting those who are native speakers with newly fluent speakers. And for those that are wanting, that are hungry for Chamorro, there's a lot of resources available. We at the Commission are looking for ways to revitalize the language. The Guam Department of Education has just a fiesta table of materials that Senora will be sharing with you all. The Chief Oral Academy has adult immersion classes. And there's other forms of revitalization that we can really explore. And so to answer your question, you can start out with the very simple phrases, and then from there you can learn about the sentence construction and how to use them. Another community effort that's happening with some of our counterparts at the university is Dr. Maget Belvaqua, who has his special classes. So the resources are there. We need to create relationships, and we really need the help too of our Manyaina. We need to ask them to help pass it on, because without them, it'll just
we won't get anywhere.
The richness will fade with them.
Exactly. All right. Well, don't kaluna since maasi. We'll be back after this. Thank you for tuning in to this year's Historian y Islata. Please join us again next year for Season 6 as we highlight more of the Chamorro people, our language, and history. Again, 2019 is the year of the Chamorro, Sakan Chamorro, so let us continue to celebrate anything and everything Chamorro year-round. Biba Guam, Biba Marianas, Biba Itano Man Chamorro, Biba Chamorro.